Imagine waking up to 100 strangers partying in your living room, invited by your homeowners association. They called it community access. He called it trespass. What he did next cost every single guest $100,000. And yes, he won. On the north edge of Clearwater Lake sat a house that looked like a glass lantern. Sunlight caught the water and poured it into the foyer, the kitchen, the quiet of a life finally earned. Marcus didn't call it a mansion. He called it a promise, the kind you keep to your younger self after years of double shifts, failed startups, and one last gamble that somehow worked. He moved in on a Tuesday. On Wednesday, the notice from the HOA arrived like a splinter under the door. Welcome. Please attend Friday's meet and greet. Community culture is everything. Community culture, Marcus repeated, smiling to himself. He wanted to believe in it. But the smile faded when he saw the signature. Karen D., HOA president. She'd already visited once, pressing her palm to the glass like she owned the sunlight, asking if his boat complied with aesthetic harmony. He'd shown her the guidelines. He'd read them twice before buying. It was compliant. She'd frowned like a storm cloud folding up. Friday night arrived. Marcus put on a navy shirt and rehearsed his neighborly smile. He never got to use it. While he watered the deck ferns, a convoy rolled down the lane. SUVs, hatchbacks, a rented party bus with tinted windows. Doors flew open. People poured out laughing, arms full of coolers and folding chairs. At the front, wearing a sash that read HOA 25th Anniversary, was Karen. They didn't stop at the curb. They didn't even knock. Karen lifted the gate's latch like a matinee hostess and waved the crowd through. "Community celebration," she called, voice as bright as a whistle that tells you to run. She stepped into Marcus's foyer, raised a glass and said, "Isn't it wonderful when we can all share the best features of our neighborhood?" "Beat," Marcus froze. "You invited 100 people into my house?" Karen's smile was a chandelier of teeth. "Well, the covenants allow for community use of common resources. This is my home. Your home is the centerpiece of the lakeside block," she said. "It reflects on all of us." The music rose like an argument that wouldn't be won. Strangers filmed selfies from his balcony. Children cannonballed off his dock. Someone dragged his kayak into a ring toss. A woman he didn't know asked where he kept the nice plates. And through it all, Karen drifted like a queen on parade, plucking orchids from vases and setting them down wherever they matched the color in her mind. Marcus felt two things at once. First, a tidal wave of humiliation, of being made the backdrop to someone else's celebration. Second, a clarity that cut like glass. He walked to his office. He opened the safe. He pulled out a small, unremarkable item that would change everything. A binder. Inside were copies of every HOA covenant, every email, every state statute he'd highlighted the day he made the offer. He set the binder next to his front door camera monitor, where feeds bloomed like windows to a better future. "Karen," he said evenly, "this is trespass. Everyone here is an uninvited guest. You have 5 minutes to leave." Karen laughed. "Oh, honey, don't be dramatic." "We're neighbors." "Not for long," someone muttered, and the sentence burned in the air. At 4:12, a man knocked over a sculpture, Marcus's mother's glass swan. At 3:01, a teenager slipped in the foyer and screamed that she'd sue the mansion guy. At 2:27, Karen dialed her phone and told security, "We've got a situation." "He's being difficult." At 00, the police lights rolled across the lake like bruises. Marcus stood on his own porch, hands visible, binder under his arm. He did not raise his voice. He did not curse. He did not move toward anyone. He told the officers he wanted every person identified and removed. He told them he had video of an organized entry, damage and non-consent. The officers looked from him to the crowd to Karen, who announced, tight-lipped, that this was a sanctioned HOA function. "Show me the sanction," Marcus said, and slid the binder's plastic sleeve free. The bylaws fell open to a page that had been waiting its whole life to be read out loud. There was no clause for community use of private residences. In fact, there was a clause forbidding any activity that imposes on the quiet enjoyment of neighboring property, including unauthorized entry. The only shared resources were the lake path and the picnic grove 2 blocks away. Karen's face changed. It didn't fall. It calcified. The officers started clearing the home. Names were taken, IDs checked, photos logged. People groaned and rolled their eyes. Someone hissed a word that made the night colder. Marcus said nothing. He just watched them go, 100 little exits scraping across his floors. At the end of it, Karen stood alone under the porch light, mascara fine as iron filings. "You don't understand," she whispered. "We don't do this to everyone." "I noticed," Marcus said. "Here's the part the neighborhood didn't hear. When the guests left, a silence folded over the lake, so complete it felt like an apology." Marcus picked up the glass swan in 2 pieces. He sat on the floor of his own foyer, the place that should have been a sanctuary, and he cried. Not because of the swan, not because of the hardwood, because of the way humiliation wears your name like a borrowed coat and walks you around in public. By morning, the binder had grown teeth. Marcus hired counsel, the kind of attorney who keeps a spare suit jacket on his chair and a whiteboard full of chess moves. They counted the guests. They counted the steps over the threshold. They counted the state statutes that made private property more than a suggestion. And then Marcus did the most audacious thing he'd ever done. He filed 100 civil suits, one for each guest, $100,000 each. The town laughed first. He'll never win. It was just a party. The HOA said it was fine. But then the footage started to circulate. Calm, high-definition frames of a door opening, of Karen's hand waving people in like an air traffic controller. The suit wasn't emotional. It was mathematical. Trespass, damage, invasion of privacy, emotional distress. The filings named Karen as organizer, and crucially the HOA as co-conspirator. That's when an email surfaced. A board member, tired, ashamed, ready to sleep again, forwarded Marcus a thread where Karen pitched, showcasing the new property as part of our anniversary tour. A reply warned, "We should ask the owner." Karen wrote, "Let's not complicate things." Depositions followed like rain after lightning. Karen insisted she had a verbal understanding. With whom? "The spirit of the neighborhood," she said. Attorneys raised eyebrows so high they turned into questions. Marcus's counsel rolled a TV into the room and pressed play. There was Karen saying, "We have to make sure the lake set stays cohesive. It's about image. Image." The word hung in the air like a mirror no one wanted to look in. The HOA's insurance carrier tried to step sideways, denying coverage because the acts were intentional and unauthorized. That left the board exposed. Board members started resigning one after another, until the newsletter looked like a missing persons flyer. On the day of the hearing, the gallery was full. Some came for spectacle, some came for justice. Marcus came with that binder and a suit the color of steady rain. His attorney spoke first. "Your Honor, this is not about a party. It's about the audacity to convert a man's home into a stage and call it community. It's about 100 people who chose convenience over consent." B-roll, close-ups of clasped hands, judge's eyes, evidence photos. The judge's ruling was not television. It didn't slam or shout. It was meticulous. It affirmed private property rights. It acknowledged the documented orchestration. It called the mass entry egregious coordinated trespass, and then, with the slow certainty of a tide coming in, it awarded damages, actual and punitive. Not to the HOA as a lump, to the individuals, 100 defendants, 100 judgments, $100,000 each, beat. The air changed in that room. Some people cried. Some stared hard at their shoes. Karen's face turned to porcelain, and then to dust. Marcus closed his eyes and let the sentence land on the floor of his life like a solid thing he could stand on. In the weeks that followed, the story traveled further than the lake. It wasn't about a mansion anymore, or a party, or a title on a letterhead. It was about the difference between neighborhood and control, between community and conquest. Strangers began leaving notes on Marcus's gate. "Thank you. I didn't think we could win. I'm sorry for the way we looked away.